In this video, we're going to go through how to price yourself and your projects. Now that you have the client's brief in hand, you need to now cost it up. You might be thinking, what's the number one rule to Price Club? We don't talk about Price Club. Well, in fact, here we do. Most freelancers don't like to discuss money and have little idea about how to cost their services at the right price point. It's all to do with our values and beliefs, what we believe we're worth for our time, and what is the value of our service. Because we're experts at what we do, we find it extremely easy to do the work and therefore undervalue our services. This leads us to uncovering the 3 pricing models you can use. Time-based pricing. The most common way freelancers price themselves, as most industry services do, is trading their time for money. This is usually based on day rates and, when appropriate, broken down into half a day or hourly. Most clients will ask you for a rates card, which is typically your daily rate for a certain role. It's also worth saying that your day rate for editing may be £500 a day, but when you're grading or doing complex 3D animations, your rate may be £900 a day. Your role, skill set, project scope, and complexity should always be reflected in the price. If you're working hourly, you'll need to track your time you've worked, so you can invoice for the right hours and also manage your time. I've included some great tracking apps in the course description below. Second, value-based pricing. Your value-based pricing comes down to what value it brings the client. For example, let's say you're working on a fizzy drink commercial for Cola Loca and it brings them a potential £100,000 in sales from that commercial alone. If you were to say charge anything between 10 to 20% of that, £10,000 to £20,000, this would be a fair amount to charge the client, as the result of your work on their product is far more valuable than what you may charge per day. Value-based pricing is also a fantastic way to negotiate with clients that come back with a classic response, "That's a little expensive." If you come across this, you could open the conversation with, "I understand the price may be higher than you had in mind. However, there's a certain amount of time needed to create this commercial to the standards that we're aiming for." Before making your decision, think about what this commercial will bring your business. Roughly how many customers do you hope to gain from this? The client will give you an estimation of how many potential customers they'll receive from this. You could then say, "Now, it's fair to say that bringing potentially X amount of sales to this video would only cost you 5% of that amount. That sounds like a sensible risk to take. Wouldn't you agree?" You can change the wording as you see fit. The essence of this is that what you're charging is a very small commitment for the client in comparison to how much business it will bring them. So it becomes a no-brainer to go ahead with the price that you've pitched. Now, the tricky thing with value-based pricing is that it's difficult to guarantee results. You can't accurately predict the success of the video. With data on YouTube subscribers or social media followers, you can always pitch that if they have 100,000 subscribers and only 5% of those people buy a product at £10, that's £50,000 in sales. You are now successfully justifying your price and that their investment will be worthwhile. Lastly, project-based pricing, which is also called a buyout. It's a set price for the project regardless of how long it takes you. Usually for larger projects, you may have a real cash cow situation. Let's say there's a set budget of £30,000 that they have to spend on post-production. They'll say to you, "Can you do this by this date?" You may benefit highly from having a set price and deadline, so that you can manage your time needed to actually complete the project. I'd recommend before accepting this that you should always ballpark the time that you estimate to do the work and then just divide the initial budget by those days. If it took 21 days to complete this, that would be £1,428 per day. Whereas if your day rate as a midweight motion graphics artist is in the £400 range, you would be taking over £1,000 less a day for doing the same work. There are also other forms of pricing that include equity of a product sales. So what does that mean? For example, if you're working on a feature film that is for cinema release, it's common that the funds for post-production have been well spent. So they may offer you to work on a low fee plus a percentage of the box office sales. So you may be paid, say, £200 a day, but negotiate 0.5% of the profits for X amount of years. The commission-based approach is more of a long-term focus, as it can act as a passive income if you believe in the project's prospects and success. So those are the pricing models, but how do you price yourself? Before you pick a number out of the air, it's important to understand what your expenses are, and what exactly is the client paying for? Well, it's primarily your services for your time, your expert advice to recommend the best way of getting to the outcome, your equipment, which could include things like hard drives, servers, computer, camera gear, and software. If appropriate, expenses such as food, travel, and healthcare. Phone and broadband bill used for the business. Office costs that may include rent and utilities. Your business, public liability, and equipment insurance. Solicitor and accountant fees if applicable. As with full-time work, your company would typically compensate you for any sick days, and you would usually receive holiday pay, taxes, pension, and student loans. Training and personal education that develops your career, professional membership fees that serve your business. As you can see, there's a lot to consider, but it's important to note that when you work as a full-time staff member, these costs we've just mentioned are all deducted before you're paid. So as a freelancer, you need to cover these expenses by including them into your day rate. Your price also generally varies depending on complexity of the project, urgency of the project, the rarity of your skill, and the value it brings the client. The years learned in your craft through any means of education, experience, and just sheer hard work should be compensated. Having said that, if you have no ballpark prices to go by, I've created the quote generator, a tool that is automatic and easy to use, and it's all yours. The quote generator also includes industry-based research on all average day rates for men and women in each field as junior, midway, and senior levels. It also has predefined roles, so you can simply look at these to find out how much you can charge. So that's how you price yourself. Pricing is a huge and evolving topic, especially for freelancers. So if you have any questions, please email me or post it in the community group, and I'll be happy to answer them.